Now, many of us have talked about reparations, and America must pay what they owe. And that message should continue. We should never let up on that. And one of the main reasons why we should never let up on reparations is because America did pay reparations for slavery, but it didn't go to the enslaved children of Africa that was brought over here and worked and toiled in this land for 246 years of free labor. Now, the reparations went to the slave owners. Yes, the slave owners got a reparation. Let's talk about that, because when they always trying to tell you that you don't deserve a reparation, if anybody didn't deserve a reparation, it was the slave owners. See, no matter what they do, they were lazy. They didn't want to do their own work. And then after the people leave off the cotton fields, they want to cry and act like they can't do for themselves. The government going to come in and actually reward slave owners. Now, back in 1862, Abraham Lincoln signed the bill emancipating, our people. And many of us didn't really find out, especially to down here until June 19, 1865 here in Galveston. That's something that we celebrate down here all the time in Juneteenth. But he wanted to ease the pain of those slave owners. So he created the District of Columbia Emancipation Act and paid those loyal to the Union up to $300 for every enslaved person. Understand that. Now, if you translate that money into modern standards, I found a calculator that was all the way up to 2018, paid $7,439 per slave. What this slave owner got back then, a reparation for his torment, rape, pillaging, free labor. He was paid because our ancestors were freed. My great-great-grandmother and grandfathers were on the slave fields in Louisiana. So that means that those slave owners could have got compensated as well if they were loyal to the Union. Once Lincoln put this act in, you had about 1,000 claims come to the federal government from slave owners for claiming up to 3,000 slaves. Now, one slave owner claimed the most for 69 slaves. At that time period, valued at $18,000. If you flip that to today's terms, it comes out to $447,000. So getting close to $500,000 for 69 slaves at that time period. So they was getting all kind of reparations. And these slave owners were paid. And nothing was said. The African who has been released, and now here in the U.S. in that time period, we were not citizens at all. This is way before the Dred Scott case or whatever. So we were still toiling in this land by ourselves, trying to do for ourselves, build for ourselves, put our families together after being enslaved, and yet they're getting compensated. Then you had things like the Devil's Punch Bowl in Mississippi, where Union soldiers got 20,000 black people and put them in that concentration camp and worked them to death. We covered that here on this channel. Because one thing that they try to do in the American indoctrination system, they try to put everything on the Confederates and saying, oh yeah, it was the Confederates, they were slave owners and everything on the Confederate. But they don't talk about the Union slave owners. They don't talk about their participation in slavery. They constantly keep putting it on the Confederate States. The difference with the Confederate States versus Union, the Confederate States were better at it, basically, than they were. And they couldn't take that. So that was causing a problem with economics. Now you hear a lot of people, and you got to know your education and your history as well when they talk about even the Civil War. Understand that Civil War is about economics, and the economics has something to do with our ancestors. And our ancestors fought in the Civil War on both sides. They have never fought a war, a conflict without us. The Revolutionary War was kicked off by Crispus Attucks, a brother. They didn't kick that off on their own. They went to our people and asked us to help them fight the British. And if we would help them win, they'll release us from slavery. This is why a lot of people who understand their history say they don't celebrate July 4th, 1776. They celebrate June 19, 1865. Because after we helped them get their freedom, understand we helped them get their freedom, They didn't do it by themselves. They have never fought nothing by themselves. I love to see the day happen when they have to fight something by themselves without the help of the black man and the black woman. But yet they always try to look down on black people when we are the complete history in this country. We built this country, fought in every war in this country. And you see the dealings that they have done to make sure to compensate them. Instead of having them pull themselves up by their own bootstraps, while Lincoln and say, hey, you had them slaves for a long time. All right, it's time for you to get out there and start doing your own work. You had the free labor too long. Why was we should have to pay? But no, that's what happens. It's been program after program after program they have received for not only after slavery, when it was coming over here during slavery, it was getting free land. Hey, just come on from Europe. We'll give you free land in Indian territory. I covered that in a video called How White Americans Got the Advantage. And I talked about every system that was put in place to give them advantage. And none of it came from pulling yourself up by your bootstraps and hard work. It was the federal government giving them everything. Now you fast forward to today, the federal government can't do what they used to do for them. And this is where the problems lie today. See, they can't look to the government. They can't say, give me a job, give me a program, give me advantage. It's eroding away every day and they don't know what to do. Now, even when you look at slavery itself, and we know that in England, they had abolished slavery before the United States. And even they compensated their slave owners. Now they had 46,000 slave owners and they paid them $26.2 million. So the reparations were paid not only in the US, but it was paid in England. So they made sure to take care of their lazy, good for nothing slave owners that never worked hard a day in their life. Free labor, and then you getting more money because you lost your hard workers. Then you talk about when the slaves fought back in Haiti, 1804, and how they kicked their butt big time. Tariq Nasheed had did a whole documentary on that. It's a good documentary. You guys should go check it out. And France had levied a large sum on Haiti, trying to cripple their economy. We knew this. France to this day is still neo-colonizing 14 African nations, have them with the CFA franc, a currency they don't even use. They don't know how to stay out of Africa. They can't do for themselves either. But they're supposed to be the superior people, but they can't do anything by themselves. Usually someone's superior, don't need no one's help, right? At that time period, an overwhelmingly majority of whites felt that slave owners deserved reparations, but not the enslaved Africans. They didn't deserve anything, even though they did the work. Now, the only thing that they also supported was a trip back to Africa. So they allocated $100,000 in government funds to take our ancestors to either Haiti or Liberia. And it was $100 per person to do so. And they said it rarely happened. So they didn't even really exhaust those funds. So when we had Reuter on here the other day, she said that her family was one of the ones that took advantage of going back to Liberia after slavery. So they could have sent us all back, really. We have no rights. We were no citizens or anything. And they did not send us back because, once again, they needed black people. They knew that. They're not silly. They haven't known a day without black people. And this is why they get bothered when we start talking about doing for self and fixing our issues and putting our family back together and not focusing on what they care about, not looking for their validation and not looking for their opinion and don't care about it. That start bothering them because they have been so intertwined in black people's affairs that they don't know how not to be. They haven't been that way with Asians or Arabs or Native Americans or Hispanics. It's been us. They've made billions and trillions of dollars off of us, not other groups of people, us. So when we start talking like that, that really bothers them. They'll call you every name in the book when you want to start doing for yourself and getting your act together. But this is the thing. Based off of what we know and what Abraham Lincoln has done, it gives you more of a right to talk about reparations. They should pay money to the descendants of the lost children of Africa because we built this and we deserve to be compensated for labor like anyone else should be compensated for their labor. Don't let no one tell you that you shouldn't speak up about reparations. When you start looking into the history and see what they have done to protect them and make sure they had and they didn't have to work for it, you shouldn't listen to nothing they would ever tell you on the guise of hard work. Because you just look at the history, they never had hard work. It was always a welfare, because all this is considered a welfare payment. You know how they say you sit on your butt with welfare, collect a free check and don't do anything? That's exactly what happened to them. They've been welfaring it up ever since they've been here. And the moment you get a piece of welfare as a problem, at least anything you ever done, you earned it. I'm the last person going to be hearing them talk about some welfare about black people. Please. We'll correct black people when it comes to that welfare, because we don't understand the mentality of that. We don't want to advocate that, because welfare, in the way it's guised up, is to be in poverty. So we don't want our brothers and sisters in poverty, but you can't talk when all you received is welfare. American indoctrination system, they don't want to teach you these things. They don't want you to know the truth of what happened. They want you to think that, oh, Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves and, oh, he was so great, and, you know, that's it. They don't want to tell you how Lincoln paid slave owners. They want to tell you that. They want to tell you what the Union soldiers did to black people. They ain't want to tell you about shipping us back to Liberia or Haiti. They don't want to tell you about that either. The whole school system is set up to indoctrinate us into an extreme propaganda of white supremacy. But leave me a comment, let me know what you think about this particular story. Keep fighting for reparations, ladies and gentlemen, because we have a right. If the federal government can pay slave owners, they can pay us.